Well, good morning, YouTube. It's Saturday morning, and the weekend is finally here where I have the time to replace the main battery on my 2021 Jeep Gladiator Rubicon diesel. I have searched the web and YouTube looking for things specific to the diesel model on a battery replacement, and there's not a whole lot out there. There's a few videos on replacing with an AGM battery, which is an upgrade from the stock battery. But there's still not a lot when it comes to the diesel, and there are a few things that are particular to the diesel that are not the same with either the 3.6 or the 2 liter. So hope to go over some of those today. While my battery is not completely dead yet, the auxiliary battery is nearly dead. I got the warning that's common in the Jeep community, and there's a parasitic drain on that backup battery that starts to kill the main. So while my main is not dead yet, I don't want to wait until it is. It's just not holding a full charge. When I turn on the ignition, I'm coming in at around 11 and a half volts. So it's on its deathbed and going out, so I figured I would jump on this and get it replaced before I'm stranded somewhere out on the trail. After doing some research and looking at the AGM, I knew I didn't want another stock battery because they literally only last like 3 years, and while it's still just a battery change, it's still kind of a pain. I looked at the AGM batteries. There are definitely some good ones. Odyssey is kind of the leading one in the market, but I also discovered in my research that lithium ion is actually an option now for car batteries. And I have a lithium ion in my Mission Overland Summit trailer, and I absolutely love it. It's an anti-gravity battery. Weighs hardly anything. It's like a 20-pound battery. You can discharge it multiple times. It recharges quickly, etc., etc. So really good battery. But the only drawback with the lithium ion is the price. They're about $1,000. So when you consider the AGM battery is like 300 and something, it's 3 times the cost to get the same battery. However, the lithium ion is supposed to last between like 8 and 10 years. Again, suitable for multiple discharges if you're running accessories down extremely low, much lower than you can do with a conventional battery, and boost back up. So for me, I was willing to make that investment, but I have not seen any videos on how to do that. So that's what this video will be about. So this journey began with a search, like many journeys, on the internet. I ended up going to the Antigravity webpage and going directly to them and starting to do a search there. Wasn't exactly sure what I was going to find, but the website's pretty well laid out. You could actually search by vehicle. So I started with looking at lithium batteries for cars. And then you could put your make in. So obviously they make them for a lot of different cars, but Jeep was on there. Obviously, the type is simple. That was a Gladiator. Year was simple, very straightforward, but it was all years anyway. And then the engine was all engine. So that made it even easier. 2 batteries ended up coming up. There was a Ford H6 group and an H7 group. So I actually called Antigravity, and they pointed me towards the 94, the H7 group. I think the other one is if you don't have a tow package. I'm not 100% sure. But the sales rep also recommended that I just go with a 60 amp. I didn't need the 80. Now, when I ordered it, interestingly, it was on back order. So I assumed this was going to take a long time to get.
3 days later.
I'm super excited to have this. It was on back order when I ordered it, but it actually shipped like the next day and then arrived like a day too late, 2 days later than that. So got here quicker than I thought it would. It was shipped in a pretty typical cardboard box wrapped around in paper. And so here it is, and this is the intelligent battery that's got its own built-in jump starting. So super light. I'll weigh this thing, but I mean it weighs nothing, maybe like 20-25 pounds.
Has the battery protection, the jump starting with a couple of things in here. So anyway, let's open this thing up and see what it looks like. All right, got a user's guide. I know, yeah, one thing right here is to fully charge the battery before you use it, because apparently this does not come in fully charged. So here are the two remote controllers that are made for the emergency jump start. So I don't have a lithium ion charger. I have to order one. So I'm waiting for that to come in. So I will bench charge this before I end up doing the replacement. But anyway, the service and everything from Antigravity was great. As I say, it shipped and showed almost immediately, so good to go there. So as long as this fits, we'll continue on from there. So I am curious what the lithium ion battery, what the charge actually is on it when it comes from the factory. So I figured I'd test it before we end up charging it. So we'll put this on the ground and we'll put this here. All right, so 13.3. So it's got a decent charge. Not fully, not over 14 or anything, but that's still a pretty decent charge. So it shouldn't take long to bring this thing fully up.
As I mentioned earlier, I did need to purchase a lithium ion specific battery charger to get this new battery fully charged. A conventional battery charger will not work on lithium ion. I found one on Amazon. Wasn't too expensive. It was like $52. Didn't know anything about the product, obviously. But anyway, it showed up and actually worked fine, did everything it was supposed to do. So I am happy with that. And I will leave the link in the description, as well as you just saw the posting on the page itself.
Alright, so I've got this powered on. The first thing is to select the battery type. And there it is, Life PO4. Alright, and then we hit the volts. And we want 12 volts. Alright, we'll start this thing out. Put the positive to the positive. Negative to the negative. And then we'll plug this puppy in here. And there we go. Alright, so I pushed the start pause button and it has started charging. And this looks like the total charge, 13.6 volts, 13.7. And about 15 and a half, the amps are going up. So I assume this will be completely full when it's fully charged. Alright, so we'll continue to monitor that and see how it goes. So another small device I picked up on Amazon, and I will certainly leave the link in the description, but basically this is a ODB port memory saver. So this plugs into the ODB port, and this goes into like a mobile little battery, you know, little small micro battery like you use to charge your cell phones and whatnot. And apparently that will keep enough juice going to the Jeep that none of the saved settings will be lost. The radio stations, however you've got your Jeep configured, this supposedly will maintain all of that. So we'll see how that works. So that'll be plugged in before I remove the old battery. Alright, so I want to give myself as much work room as I can, so I'm going to go on and push this hood all the way back up against the windshield. So I'll throw this little blanket over here to kind of pad it a little bit. And then we'll just lift this hood up and set it gently down against the top here so it doesn't scratch. Good. Now that gives me a whole lot more room to work on this battery, and another advantage of the diesel is I can lift this straight up and out. So, all right, that's looking good. So one of the things I was concerned about when replacing the battery is basically, you know, modern vehicles are essentially a rolling computer, and I've got just countless settings that are already preset on this, and when I remove the ground of the main battery, all of those are going to blank out, and I would have to reset radio stations and all the configuration inside the Jeep. So I found this little kit on Amazon, and I will leave a link to this, that basically plugs into the ODB2 port, and then connects up to just any kind of like little cellular phone charger, like this little thing I've got. And when it's plugged into the ODB2 port, in theory, it's supposed to give it enough charge to the system that it won't blank out all your memory settings. So I'm going to set that thing up and see how it works after I follow the directions here to see what I'm looking at. And if that works, then I won't have to sit there and spend a lot of time reprogramming everything once I get the new battery in. Didn't do anything. Make sure this is still on. There's no other up here. Oh, there we go. Okay, so there we go. It is now powered on. Lights 2 and 3 should light up. We have 2 and 3 out, 4 is not on. Okay, so I think that's good to go. So that should, if this in theory, will protect all my settings. So I think we're clear to go on and disconnect the ground on the battery now. So the differences in the layout under the hood of the diesel compared to the 3.6 are fairly significant. The air cleaner is on the driver's side over here as opposed to the passenger side on the 3.6. And then as far as the battery is concerned, the fuse panel, which is normally against the firewall on the 3.6, is up here forward near the radiator, and the battery is actually what's against the firewall. So it's a little bit different to change out this battery than it is on the 3.6. And additionally, the auxiliary battery is in a panel directly under this battery. So you don't have to get up under the fender and pull all that to get to the auxiliary battery. So that's kind of nice. I have a lot of accessories wired into this vehicle. I've got a worn 10,000 pound winch that's wired up to the battery. I have an ARB dual air compressor that's behind my driver's side passenger seat. Also wired in, what I've done is I've run a couple of battery cables along the frame rails back from the main battery to a post back here in the rear of the truck to power that, and then it's sitting on a 100 amp fuse because that thing uses a lot of juice to get wired in. And then my air controls are all down here under the seat. Additionally, I have the Cascadia solar panel on my hood. This is the controller for that. You can see it's working like it's supposed to, but that's wired into the battery. I actually have a couple of outlets here that I envisioned using for like a work light or something if I were working under the hood in the dark. But the reality is I've actually never really used these, so I may end up pulling that and saving a little bit more. But then with all the additional lights and accessories, as you can see, this is pretty crowded under here, and I'm going to need to get access under here because there's a bolt that holds this battery in place. So a lot going on in there, but it's all been working heretofore. So we'll see how it does with the lithium ion. All right, so my first step here is to remove the ground post. I believe this is a 10 millimeter that holds it directly to the battery. If I can, I'm going to release this and move everything off as one single unit. I have temporarily bypassed the auxiliary, so that is the ground to the auxiliary I've taped up, and I pulled the appropriate fuse out of the fuse panel here. So we'll try and take this off. If not, I'll have to do some of this stuff individually, but we'll see if we can do it all at one time and get that out of the way. All right, so the ground is held on with a 10 millimeter, so we've got a 10 millimeter socket. We'll put that on there and we'll start to take this puppy off and get this going. Now, out of an abundance of caution, once I pull this off, I'm going to wrap this up in a rag or a plastic bag or something and tape it up out of the way so there's no chance of shorting anything out when we start working with the hot side. Okay, so for now, I just took a freezer bag, wrapped it over this entire mess, and I'm going to secure it with just a zip tie temporarily and then push that out of the way. And that should keep everything safely out of the way as we start on the ground side. So, all right, so on the positive side. So the ground is now disconnected. So onto the hot. All right, so pulling the hot cable is a little more complicated than pulling the ground. So it's still a 10 millimeter that holds this, but as I understand it, there's a plastic clamp that's back up under this side that connects this to the battery. So that even if you remove this, you can't pull this whole post out. So it has this kind of T connector here that runs all the accessories, and as you can see, I've got several things running to this. This is my separate fuse for the air compressor. So I think I'm going to try and take this nut off and pull that assembly out and then separate it all out and switch it over to the new battery once it's on the bench. That might be the easier of the two ways to do this, as opposed to trying to get something under that clip and get that out. So we'll see how that goes. All right, so that center nut is actually a 12 millimeter. So one of the beautiful things about Jeep is the metric. So they're pretty easy for a novice mechanic to figure out which one you need. So we'll start loosening that one and see if we can get most of this stuff off to be able to get the battery out. All right, so that nut has the kind of the built-in washer with it. So that's convenient. And all right, yep, a good chunk, yep, so that worked. Everything pulled off of that that's supposed to. So that makes this removal of the battery a little bit easier. So that's step 2. I will try and pull that out of the way as much as I can. And a couple of the accessories. I've got one accessory that kind of came loose with that, so that's not bad at all. And yep, there is a clip on that. I can see it now that holds this clamp onto the main battery. All right, so the next step now, there's kind of a lip on the base of these batteries that slides into a groove around here, and then there is a 10 millimeter bolt that has another little wedge in there that holds this thing in place, so you don't need a bar across the top. So again, with all my accessories that I have kind of jammed in here, I've got to clear out a path because I can't even see that bolt at this point. So I'm going to pull some of this wiring out of the way. I've got a Bluetooth controller right here that controls some other lights from my phone. A couple of things I got to do to kind of clean this up to get access to it. But then after that, this battery should be set to pull out. All right, so I have got a lot of this junk pulled out of the way, including my Oracle Bluetooth signal. And if you look down there, you can see that little 10 millimeter bolt that holds that wedge in place. So now I've got access to that. I'm going to have to get an extension. But we'll take that and pull that part out, and we're getting closer. All right, so I've got a 3/8 extension for my drive here. Throw this down on that 10 mil that reaches, and this wasn't even on very tight. Obviously being plastic didn't need a whole lot, so get that out. And loosen that the rest of the way off. Now my big fear is always dropping a bolt like this somewhere where it's completely inaccessible for the rest of my life. So hopefully I can gingerly get this thing out of here and not lose it. I think that's probably already, yeah, nope, it's still threading out. That's got to be about out. Can't tell, I'm scared to, I don't want to lose it. Okay, now it's definitely out. I can feel it skipping. Okay, so now I'll figure out a way to get that out. Maybe I can reach it with my hand. Yep, I've got my fingers on it as long as I don't drop it, which again, One of my bane of my existence. Still catching on something in there. Alright, let me, maybe it's a two-hand job. If I can get my other hand in there. Or maybe I can just pull the whole wedge out together. We'll see. I'm going to get a pair of needle nose pliers and see what I can do on that. So as I mentioned, my greatest fear is always dropping a bolt somewhere inaccessible. I pretty much almost did that. I dropped it and the bolt is right down there, about to drop into some abyss in the firewall. So I'm going to get that pair of long needle nose pliers and hopefully I can pull that back out before she's lost for good. So as I mentioned, dropping bolts is a pretty common occurrence for me, so I have lots of all sorts of good tools to kind of bail myself out, including a magnet, extendable magnet, a little gripper clamp, and some pliers. So one of these ought to help me find that little rascal. I may try, well, let's see if the magnet works. Hey, look at that, so far so good. All right, got it. So, world is saved. Thank goodness for good tools. So from here, I'm just going to pull that little block out because I can get my fingers in there pretty much. Yep, I think I got it. And there she is. So that is the little clamp that holds the battery in place. So that part is done. Now the battery should slide this way. Okay, the next stage here is to take this insulating cover off the battery. I've had to wiggle it loose in a few places to kind of get it going. There's a little tab in here that connects it to the top. But after that, it starts to kind of just slide out, and there we go. So at this point, this battery should be ready to lift out of here. I hope. So this thing weighs like 50-some pounds. I am a 60-year-old man, so I'm going to use a bench here, and hopefully I don't throw out my back trying to get this beast out of here. So I tried the step stool, but it got me too far away from the Jeep, so I think I'm just going to have to knuckle this thing out here. And there it goes. It's not too bad. All right, so old battery is out. Let's take this over to the bench and switch it over with the new one. Okay, so we now have both batteries sitting here on the bench. This is the old Mopar stock battery, the original battery out of the truck, and my new Antigravity. I have followed the directions here and fully charged this. So that can be removed. I'll put it there because I probably want to scan that to get the warranty started. And look at that. Look at the difference in that weight. One-handed all day long, easy. I mean, it is a fraction of the weight that I can't move that with one hand. So interesting comparison on the two. All right, so what I'm going to do now is pull this off and try and get this located on the new battery. And that's it on that. Then we're done with this, and we'll start working on putting this into the Jeep. And if I didn't mention, this has the built-in jump start, so I'm pretty excited about that too. So, okay, let's see if this thing fits over on the new battery. So far, everything looks good. It's got the lip that goes into the mounts there, so that should lock in. This should be right. The dimensions are all good, so let's see how this goes. All right, so exactly like the negative post was, this is a 10 mil. So we will loosen that. And yeah, see how this tab works. It's obviously loose already. Yeah, and I guess you just pry that off. Now that I've got some room to work on it, I would assume. Let me try a little bit more. I see. That's an interesting design on that. It does tend to hold everything in place, so I guess that is good. We'll see how that fits in on the new battery. Okay, still can't get this quite off, so really don't want to break that tab if I don't have to. Okay, guess the tab wasn't a factor after all, so that came right off, but that is there and supposed to lock under that lip. So, yeah, I see, and then it just pinches in there, if you can see that. That's that mount there. So, okay, pretty straightforward. And that means this now will go here. And yep, same thing, that is actually a perfect fit. That just feels like a glove, so we will tighten that back on. And we're off to the races here, I think. I hope. Okay, that doesn't want to quite bite in there, so let's see what we got to do to get that thing started. It's just spinning right now, so let me get a screwdriver or something to kind of wedge that. Okay, so I'm just holding a little screwdriver here to kind of lock that in place, and it's tightening right down now, so we should be good to go. Alright, don't want to gorilla tight that, but that should do it. Okay, that's it, and take this very easy light battery, and it came with some additional post mount here. I don't think I'm going to need those. And it also came with studs on the top that you can thread in here, I assume for accessories. So I don't think I'm going to need those either, but we'll keep them on standby just in case. Alright, so before I can put the new battery in, I need to get under this panel where the auxiliary battery is and remove that altogether, because a lead acid and a lithium ion battery will not work together. So I'm just going to get rid of this altogether. This will just be an empty compartment. I may try rewiring this back into the new battery to see if that will at least trick the system without having the auxiliary battery in it. I don't care about the start-stop for me, but anyway, the cleaner I can make this, the better. So I believe these are 10 mil as well. So I'm going to take this panel off and remove that little auxiliary battery. And there is your auxiliary battery on the Diesel Gladiator. So again, much easier if you do want to keep this set up and you do just run a traditional lead acid or AGM battery. This is really easy to get to. So I'm now going to pull the cables off of that, starting with the ground and then the lead, and lift that little sucker out and be done with it. So next step, I believe that's also a 10 mil. So hats off to Jeep on consistency on the bolt sizing. So yep, 10 mil, we'll take that off and go from there. Alright, so I just did another little smaller sandwich bag Ziploc around that to get that out of the way until I get the lead off. And then what I think is if I can get this whole harness up and around, I may try and connect these to the new main battery, just so there's some sort of power to the auxiliary. As I say, I've done the bypass on it, so the fuse is pulled and the ground on the other side is out, but at least it'll do something with these cables. So I'm not sure that's kind of the only option I see as far as like doing something with this other than just leaving them in there bare, which I don't think I want to do. So, all right, let's get that lead off, the hot side off, and pull this battery out. It's another miserable winter day in San Diego. I'm going to take off my sweat jacket here in a second. Sun's out, looks pretty nice today. Oop, yeah, see, almost dropped that one too. All right, now we'll pull that lead off. There we go. That's it. Now the aux is out, and we'll see if I can pull that thing out maybe with a big pair of bench pliers or something just to lift it out. I'm not sure I've got enough hand strength, but we'll give that a shot. All right, looks like I can actually grab this by the two posts and lift it up. Yep, okay, and it's got a little blanket on it too. There is some dust and crud on that. And that's it. So the auxiliary battery is now out. So if you ever do want to go back and use this auxiliary battery, if you replace it, it's important to pull these two posts off. The batteries do not come with that. I believe it's a 4mm. It is. And yeah, those should just pop right off. So I'm going to take these off and store them. just in case either if I ever sell the Jeep and somebody wants it, whatever, you know, it's just nice to have these options for people. So yeah, that comes right off. And same with that one. Otherwise, this is going to the recycler, and that's the end of that battery. So, okay, cool. Okay, so before I put that cover back on, I wanted to see if I could reroute this to where it'll be more accessible up to the main battery. And sure enough, there's just one little clamp that was holding this down. So from here, I should be able to feed this up and around and see about mounting it onto the main battery once we got everything set up. So that's encouraging. If it weren't such a pain in the butt to get to, that'd be a cool place to store stuff. But yeah, not anything I'm going to put in there for the pain that it is to get it in and out. All right. That's back in. I'm going to feed this cable back around on the outside to see if I can maybe connect it into the main, and then we're going to drop the main in and start putting this all back together. Okay, so I managed to pull the auxiliary wiring harness up and out, and I just pulled it straight up and around, and that should give me enough room to try and mount this on the main battery. So again, still somewhat of an experiment here. So okay, I believe it's time to drop the main in. Okay, so now we're going to take our super light anti-gravity and throw this thing back in here with the hot going to the firewall side towards the rear. We will see if we can fish this in here. Again, being so light, this is not an overall unpleasant job because I'm not wrestling around with 50-some pounds. All right, what do we got? We're getting there. Is that it? All right, I think that wedges in and forward, right? Yep, that's wedged. That's wedged, okay. Well, that was simple. And then we'll put the retaining wedge down in there. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a new battery on board. I'm very excited about this. Okay, let's get that wedge back in there. Again, this sort of work always scares me. All right, so it actually took me a few minutes to get that little clamp back in there. But notice the hollow end, that's the side that's got to go up. I was trying to put that in backwards, and there's two little grooves that line up with plastic tabs. So if you put it in the right direction and line up the tabs, the bolt lines right up and it goes right in. So we are good to go on that. We'll tighten that down, and that's the end of that. All right, let's get the insulator over it. That is one thing, I guess. Another issue apparently is like lithium ion, maybe in extreme cold weather, like below 20 degrees kind of stuff for extended period of time, don't hold a charge as well. I don't know how that compares to a normal lead acid, but not something I normally run into, but just to be on the safe side, I think I'm gonna try and put that insulator cover back on it. Okay, without question, the hardest part of this job so far was getting this little insulator blanket crammed back down into that side. There's a lot of wires and stuff, so I had to cut some zip ties and kind of mangle it. It took about 10 minutes, but anyway, now we have it on, and I feel a little bit better. So, okay, I think we're ready to start wiring everything back up. All right, we'll put that back on the stud there, tighten that down. I think this was the 12, not the 10. Okay, that's on. And now the question is, how do I work this into this battery? So I may try and just mount this on this. Oop, that's not a very small. I may have to enlarge that hole. I've heard people say that as well, but I could throw it on there, and I honestly don't know what that's going to do, but that's at least good because it reaches. And then I can throw the ground on the other side, I suppose. Yep, I guess that's my choice. Doesn't work, I guess we'll know. So, all right, I think I'll give that a try. Okay, so to mount this auxiliary hot tab on the post I want to, which again will even barely fit here, but it will fit. I've got to drill out the opening here a little bit, so I'm going to try with 11/32, and hopefully that does the trick. So all right, we'll see if that fits now. If it does, which it does, so we will tab that on there as part of this grand experiment to see if we can bypass or at least work the auxiliary off the main battery. Okay, so I got the auxiliary lead wire that was on the auxiliary battery itself, posted in here. On that secondary cable I run back to the air compressor, but it's connected to the lead, so in theory that should work with my limited knowledge of electricity. So the next step here is to connect the ground, and then the ground on this one, and we'll see how it all works. So we're getting pretty close. Okay, it is time to connect the ground. So pull the plastic off of this beast and see what we got to do. Pull that tab off and make sure I've got an easy access to this to get it on. And all right, let's get it on that post. Okay, there it goes. Push that down thoroughly. That seems like that's pretty well on. And get that 10 mil. And tighten that down. Now the last thing is to take the auxiliary ground, and I'm just going to put it on that post there. Again, it looks like I may have to enlarge the hole. I wouldn't be happier if I didn't, but that's not a big deal in the big scheme of things. So, okay, as it turned out, I found a nut on here that is 10 mil smaller, and I think that will fit. Yep, that'll fit this one without having to drill. So that's a nice plus. So, okay, we'll connect this on there like so. Man, I am running out of real estate here though. That doesn't fit too well. Let me see. The best way to get that sucker over there. Don't lose the nut, Frank. Don't lose the nut. See, I tell you, I got a thing. All right. That's a little bit better angle for me. Maybe I can come in this way and hopefully get that angle to where it will line up. Man, I just every angle I try is just a degree off. Ah, God dang it, don't lose that nut. If I could just get that right there and bend it enough to, yeah. Shouldn't be that hard, but that's kind of the way things go, huh? Just not enough to, and I may have to end up bending these tabs, which not ideal, but maybe I can get it up. No, over here didn't really work either because of the, okay, there we go. That'll work. That'll work, okay. Just had to mess with it a bit. All right, let's get that tightened down. All right, everything is buttoned back up. I've got the auxiliary battery wired into the main now. Positive and ground are hooked up. Moment of truth, is this thing going to start, fire up, and throw any code? So we'll get in the dashboard and see how it works. I think I'll take this thing off later. Let's keep it on there for now. Alright, so first step here is to disconnect the ODP plug that we were using All right, so that is out. I'll disconnect the power port and see if that did anything at all. Well, I've at least got lights on in the interior, so they're getting power somewhere. So, okay, moment of truth. Okay, things are starting. Things are starting. Okay, I do have a battery light on. Let's see. All right, so the voltage, 13.1, 13.2. Not quite up to the 14, so I don't know what that's about yet. We'll see. I think that's supposed to be around 14 something. Maybe it's down because the aux is on. All right, so CarPlay is working. Take that call later. All right, so other than the dashboard here, everything seems to be okay. 13.4, I'd like to see that go up a little bit. We'll kind of keep an eye on it and see what it does. But at least it's running, and this doesn't seem, I got to see what's going on with the dashboard here. I've been told that sometimes these things take a little bit of time to all kind of sync itself, so maybe my station presets didn't work or something. Okay, quick follow-up. I stopped the truck and just turned the battery back on, and now everything seems to be working fine, and all my presets are still in here. Nothing looks like it has changed, so I think this might be a win, fingers crossed. So far so good. Only thing is the battery charge, so I'll keep monitoring that and see what it does. Okay, so it appears that everything is working accordingly. I'm not throwing any code lights. All my memory settings are still there, all my radio stations, satellite radio. Everything is still working and appears to be in working order. So I think this was a success. So this was a 1 cup of coffee job, but I will, in full disclosure, admit that that was a very cold cup of coffee by the time I was done. So this probably took me an hour and maybe a little bit of change, but I went very slow deliberately just to kind of make sure I didn't forget a step or anything else. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a like, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave those in the comments section. I'd love to hear from people more versed in this kind of thing than I am, but until the next one, appreciate you watching and have a great day. Hope this helped. And that's a wrap. Good to go.